Okay, welcome everyone to the second in the series of the free professional development lockdown webinar series. Tonight we're going to be doing chakras, and chakras is a topic very dear to my heart. And it's taken me a long time. I've had a long journey with it from, you know, I lived 3 years in India, and when I lived in India, that was before I studied kinesiology back in the early 90s, early to mid 90s. And when I got back to Australia, I started with kinesiology, learning it. You know, I wasn't, you know, I studied all the religious philosophies, so I didn't really get into yoga, chakras and everything like that. But when I started studying kinesiology and start with meridians and then learn chakras, you realize how important they can be. And, you know, different systems have brought chakras in, and certainly in NK, we've got the Chakra Hologram series, which I originally authored with Kerry McFarlane. And then there's a couple of extra workshops I've done, and she's planning to, sometime in the future, bring another workshop in the Chakra Hologram series. And so what I'm going to share to you are just things, they're not so much about established chakra theory. If you want to listen to established chakra theory, this is not the place to be. What I understand is how the way I understand chakras and the way I've come to understand it. And in the PowerPoint I've produced for you today, it's got combinations of stuff from, you know, Chakra Hologram 1, Chakra Hologram 4, and other things. And basically, it's a way of understanding why chakras are important, how it relates to our everyday life, and especially when we have stress in our life. I've always said the chakra system is a perfect system of psychology. Chakra imbalances and balances, for that matter, or we could say the state of a chakra perfectly explains why people behave the way they do. And it gets to the point when you watch someone, you see how they're behaving and you can say, I can see that chakra imbalance and that chakra imbalance. And as a professional practitioner, especially as a kinesiologist, it's useful because it tells you where you might need to work in your energetic realm. And sort of balancing chakras is certainly part of the energetic systems. So let's go into the world of chakras according to me. And I'm sure other people have other theories and everything, but everything that I'm going to present to you, or most things, have just come from me and my understanding over the last, I don't know, 22 years of developing kinesiology courses, because 98 was the first time I started developing. And here we are in 2000, you know, that's 22 years later. And still, this work is important. And I use it every day. Every kinesiology balance that comes in, even in minor parts of it, just a little bit on the side. If you understand the nature of the chakra imbalance, you can talk to people why they are behaving in the way they do. So what this tells you is it gives you an explanation of why people behave the way they do. And once you make the intervention on the level of the chakras, you can completely change the way they behave. So let's start. I hope you can all see that. Can people give me a thumbs up if they can see the PowerPoint okay? Okay, thank you. Okay, so all the following are interconnected, interrelated, and cannot be separated from each other. Energy imbalance, that is imbalances in our energetic systems. The most common ones used in kinesiology are the meridian system and the chakras. And certainly, usually when you start kinesiology, say in Touch for Health and in its principles of kinesiology, it's about a meridian muscle connection. Even in our work with principles of kinesiology, I brought in chakras. So people who train with us straight from the beginning are learning how to utilize chakra information right from the beginning. Behavioral imbalances, I call that your behavior is your psychology or your psyche. So this can be things like your mental state, emotional state. It can even be archetypical patterns, and I'll certainly talk about that, samskaras. And then the physiological imbalances. So it could manifest in your physiology. It could be a sore muscle. I've got a sore back. I've got a thyroid problem. You know, I've got constipation. I've got a sore toe. Whatever it is, there's a manifestation in the physical. The physical is often a symptom, and fine in very acute, severe acute situations, treating symptoms can be important. I don't discount it. And certainly, you know, when they call kinesiology or any other complementary therapy or complementary or alternative medicine, it really should be complementary to the established or what they call allopathic system. So in NK, we have this triangle that I developed. I call it the treatment triangle, and because every major school of kinesiology has got their own triangle, so this is mine. And it's exactly what I was talking about. On one point, we've got our energetic structures, another point, the anatomy and physiology, and at another point, you've got the emotions, the psychology, which is like the emotions, thoughts, beliefs. You know, often when we set goals, that goes to the psychology, because that's in your mind. I'm going to set a goal of where I want to be and how I want to behave, but it doesn't necessarily mean the way you are behaving or where you are. And so, you know, even when people do a simple muscle correction, you know, the anatomy and physiology, the stress is showing in the muscle, we correct the meridian or chakra and we set a goal. So even in the Touch for Health 14 muscle balance or 42 muscle balance, or whatever they do in principles of kinesiology, we have a 20 muscle imbalance. It's really, this model describes exactly what we do in kinesiology, and it makes it very holistic, because when you understand it, they're all interconnected to each other. And so when you have one out of balance, you will find at somewhere, at some point, there's another imbalance in the other areas as well. And I kind of, you know, it was interesting over the years. I've learned many things, and one thing that I understood, and this came from my understanding of the work, if anyone has heard of Candace Pert and her book Molecules of Emotion, and she was talking about this, is the interconnectedness between the nervous system, immune system, and endocrine system, where they all communicate through hormones. And she called the molecules of emotion neuropeptides, like CRH was negative expectations, for example. And they're totally communicating with each other. So you get an imbalance in one, the others know about it. Very interesting. I mean, she discovered receptors, the opioid receptors, and they tried to cheat her out of a Nobel Prize. So, you know, she stood up for herself, which is good. She never got it though. But when you look at the nervous system, it's kind of interesting, because the nervous system interacts with your muscles like a muscle test. Your beliefs, you know, any belief system, it takes, if you believe something, the process of believing in something actually is a neurological process, because you've got all your neurons firing in your cortex, your thoughts, your emotions, and your energy structures. Like they know the chakras, for example, connect with the nerve plexus. and also as they all come into your central channel, you know, it connects totally with your central nervous system. So your energetic structures are all interacting with the nervous system, and the nervous system is communicating with your immune system and endocrine system. So what we do in kinesiology, we make the intervention here normally. We process this, we set goals, and we certainly work with people's emotions. And I'm certainly not going to tell you how to do that, because, you know, most decent systems of kinesiology, and there's quite a few out there, you know, they all deal with these things, and we all work with the skeletal muscles, because the whole thing of a muscle test, it's actually a neurological event. You know, when you, even when you're walking and talking and doing sort of things, it's all your neurology. And so when you test a muscle, you get someone to hold, they actually have to fire neurons in their brain to make that happen. But what happens when we have stress in our lives? We have stressful thoughts around the stressful topic. We have beliefs around the stressful topic. Our skeletal muscles hold a tension pattern that can be regarded as body memory. And that's triggered by, you know, in your brainstem, you have an area of the brain called the PAG, which actually activates your muscles when you're in stress. And so that's why, you know, the muscle test, people use it as a diagnostic tool, but I just can't see it. You know, all I can see neurologically, all the muscle tests can tell you that there exists stress. And even Richard Utt used to say it. He would call his basic, his first level, he called them SOS, stress observation specialists. And he had this saying, homeostase stress instead of homeostasis, you know. And so kinesiology is really a stress management system. And once we understand exactly that's what we're doing, and we can even market it as a stress management system. And I mean, you know, just look around the world today, how many people are stressed out? You know, I'm communicating with my family in Ecuador. I mean, they're in an absolute crisis over there, you know, and they don't have the facilities or the capacity to deal with it like we do here in Australia. You know, the whole world is stressed out at the moment, everybody. You have emotions around the stressful topic, and you have energetic structures that hold a pattern of imbalances. They are created by the stress, and they also feed the stress. And that's the unusual thing about energy structures, especially when the energy gets really negative. You have this whole thing where the energy structures actually feed off the stress and feed the stress, and you stay in, it's like a perpetual loop. So it kind of keeps you there, and then you feel stuck and you can't move. And how many of you out there are kinesiologists, you've done some kind of correction, you know, through meridians or chakras or whatever, and you shift your clients through it? Because when you break the, you know, when you do intervention in the energetic structures, what you're doing is you're breaking the cycle. And it's like, you know, it's like a perpetual energy cycle. It feeds, it feeds, it feeds, it feeds, and it keeps itself going. It's self-perpetuating, which is an interesting phenomenon of the energetic world when we work with energy like prana and chi, that it does this. And, you know, like in our physical world, perpetual energy is like the, you know, one of the things that people have been searching for forever, because you could like basically, you know, you use that to power cars, planes, houses for nothing. And that would be amazing, but it won't work in the physical world, but in the energy world, it does. And people have to understand the difference between the physical world and the energy world. The rules, same rules don't apply. And that's why we can do like things like distance healing and stuff like that, because in the energy world, time and space doesn't matter. And you can have perpetual energy, where in the physical world, it does, time and space does matter, and you can't have perpetual energy. So by doing the intervention here with energetic structures, we can change all of that. and which is what most of you have probably observed, and this is just a model that I put together, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago to explain it in a way that people can understand it. So, what are we here for? We're here about the psychology of the chakras. And so, excuse my Spanish, I am from a South American background, but here is one of the probably most accurate pictures I've seen of chakras. It's from the book of Barbara and Brennan. And you can see, it's interesting that chakras have a front and back. And you can see that they, they have all these separate little, what are called cones, or the Indians called them petals. If you read the Indian literature, they'll say, the base chakra is a 4-petaled lotus. It's because chakras look like a lotus and it's got 4 petals, which means Barbara Ann Brennan would say the base chakra is a chakra with 4 cones. Another interesting picture from 15th century Rajasthan, you can see a representation of the chakras. Here, the chakras above the head, which I call the celestial chakras. To me, they exist preconception. So you have your really, let's say, karmic issues. And I'll talk about karma in a minute, and archetypes and samskaras. But, certainly the Indians knew about all this, and you can see how they represent the chakras as symbols. And because they're very symbolic and they have symbolic meaning, and in India, they always express themselves in terms, it's like they don't say things directly. It's very expressive. Like your base chakra has an elephant with 7 trunks in it, but of course you don't walk around with an elephant and 7 trunks in your base chakra, but it describes the quality of it. And so they would have a very descriptive way of describing it. In our modern day and age, as practitioners, we need to have a way of describing this information that's actually very direct, and also, something in a way, we need to be able to describe it in a way that relates to our clients. And so the way I've looked at it is, say, you work with chakra imbalances, you tell them, you can describe how that imbalance, what behavior that would be, and then they say, oh yeah, I understand that. This is blah, blah, blah. This is what I do. So you help them to connect with the way they behave, how it's related to that chakra imbalance with respect to the issue that they have. Okay, so that's the whole thing about chakras. So what are chakras anyway? People commonly refer them as energy centers, and certainly they are, but what does that even mean, energy center anyway? Basically what I've understood, chakras have 2 main functions. And so when you understand function in our physical body is actually our physiology. So when I started going further into the chakras and I wrote the Chakra Hologram 4 course, what I understood was that the chakras are places where people exchange energy. And we exchange energy all the time with people. But and the way to understand is each chakra has a different energy. Like the throat chakra is communication. The heart chakra is unconditional love, Have you ever been in love? So that's the way I understood it, is chakras are places where people can exchange energy. That's one of the main functions of chakras, because we live in an interconnected world. And even as we, when I'm talking to people and, they're saying this and that, even the kids these days, a friend of mine was saying that their niece was having a Zoom party, like 6 years old or 9 years old or something, with all their friends. So they all get together on Zoom, and like 9-year-olds. but they're still interconnected, even though they're not physically connected, and they still exchange energy with each other. And you can be on the other side of the world, and I certainly had those experiences in previous relationships, where you know, you can have an argument with someone on the phone, and they're on the other side of the world, and then all of a sudden, you know, all that energy affects you. You exchange energy with the person. And so understanding that, and then when you understand how the imbalance is manifesting, how the ability to understand this will, if you can get this really fundamentally, understand it deeply, you will be able to explain many things to your clients, and you'll find it'll be so useful in your clinic. You know. The other thing they can do is they can transduce energy between the different layers, and I'll mention the layers a bit later, but they certainly are transducers, and like the chakras, you know, the most common model people use is they have 7 layers, and say one layer is called the mental and the other one's the astral or emotional. So when you transduce from mental to astral or emotional, you're converting thought into emotion. Or if you go up, you're creating emotion into thought. You know, like you have an emotion, then you think about it. Or you have a thought, and that creates an emotion within you. Say on the throat chakra, which has the energy of communication, if you're feeling misunderstood about, you know, you're trying to communicate with someone and they misunderstand you, you have this thought, oh, they misunderstood me. And then you have, I don't feel good about that. You know, I feel angry or sad or hurt or whatever emotion you have. But the thought has created emotion, and that is a transduction in the chakra. And if it's the energy of communication, that's what you do. And so what I realized is that we have a physical anatomy and physiology, but we also have an energetic anatomy and physiology. Okay. And certainly we know the meridian system. I know that I've had a little device. I remember I saw it when I was a kinesiology student in the college in Melbourne. They had this device that, because acupoints have a different electromagnetic readout, so you'd run it over the point, and you would actually get a readout of, you know, it would change, it would beep when it was on a point. So you could use it to locate acupoints. It's kind of interesting. But we have this whole energetic anatomy and physiology. And so they, you know, this is made out of our chakras, our aura, meridians, nadis, our etheric web, and things like this, which, you know, I'm not going to go too much into that, which I assume, as most of you are professionals, you understand these things. I'm here to talk about chakras. Okay. But what was interesting is I got, you know, because one thing I wanted to understand is that when if chakras exchange energy, what is it we're actually exchanging? That was the question I had. What do we actually exchange? And when I read all the books, you know, especially the old theosophical, they talk about the mental atom and the astral atom and the atmic atom and this atom and that atom. It was like, okay, so we have physical atoms, but each of these kind of planes or different bodies or dimensions, you know, I refer to them more as dimensions. To me, is a more better way to understand it, that it explains it better. We have the dimension of our emotion, we have the dimension of our thoughts or mental plane, rather than our mental body or our mental plane, or our mental dimension, which is that of the way we think. And so, you know, so if our physical body has blood, right, it distributes nutrients, removes waste from our physical structures. You know, we might, you know, filter stuff out our kidney or our liver, you know, or we sweat it out or whatever. Our energetic body distributes prana, or in the when it gets in the meridians, we might call it chi or jing. And that distributes it to our energetic and physical structures. And we certainly observed that with kinesiology and the muscle test. It was the original sort of observation or discovery by George Goodhart, is that he observed the connection between the meridian and the muscles, which meant what he actually discovered was that our muscles are fed chi from the meridians. The Chinese always talk, in the old TCM, they always talked about, oh yeah, you know, the kidney meridian feeds the kidney, and the bladder meridian, the bladder, the stomach, and all that kind of thing. But what he discovered, that they actually distribute energy more than just those organs. And it's kind of, in kinesiology, we name the meridians after the organ, the main organ they feed, but it's kind of misleading, and people actually get a little bit caught up in that, you know. So that's something to understand. Anyway, so our physical structures remove waste, but in our energy body we distribute prana, but we have negative energies, and they are removed as energetic waste. And so in kinesiology, you might say, oh, I've got a negative energy field, or I've got an imbalance. But in our physical body, to remove waste, it's got to go to a certain part of the body. But in our energy bodies, we actually, if the imbalance or negative energy is, say, in the heart chakra, we would go there and just remove, you know, dissolve it or remove it, and it would go from where it is. It doesn't have to travel anywhere to be removed. You remove it from where it is, where in the physical body, it actually has to, if we have waste, it has to be transported. And it's part of our detoxification system. We have the 3 phases, and the 3rd phase is removal from the body. So there's a whole way our body does that, but our energetic system does this. So our physical body our waste is removed. Typical places: liver, kidney, lungs, intestines, skin. In our energetic body, waste is removed where it exists, but depends on our psycho-spiritual dependencies, which is our samskaras or karma. God, I hate that word. And archetypes, even so. So what's that? Let me show you something cool. So this is a model I put together. And these archetypes, you can see there. I mean, you've got the PowerPoint. There's something I downloaded from the internet. I think they call them archetypes of money, but they're more than that. And there's more archetypes than this. But they're actually come from the original imbalance, which is the samskara. And this is something that's really core to our being. And sort of balancing samskaras is something very tricky and hard to do. And I mean, I've developed a system for it, but again, it's really working on an out there place, and it really depends on the level of buy-in of your client, because they have to be ready to do it. And if they're not ready. But anyway, so the pranic flow comes through the original imbalance, which is the samskara. And from that, you create the archetypes. You know, like you might have the victim. So you end up always being a victim, you know, like, and then there's many ways to do the victim. You could be a victim of abuse. You could be a victim of fraud. You know, there's just so many different ways. It just manifests in a different way. Or you could be the martyr. That's a good one. You get a lot of that in kinesiology, or the caregivers. Another one's not on this list, but the martyr is you sacrifice your needs for everyone else's. So everything's about, oh, my client needs this, my client needs that. But, you know, you have to have a good boundary. And commonly when people, it's kind of interesting when people start practicing kinesiology. I mean, how many of you, when you first started practicing, got really tired after a balance? And then how many of you actually feel energized after a balance? Or how many of you shifted from being tired and then later you shifted to where I do a balance and I feel really energized? I mean, I had that experience. And now it energizes me. And that's because you've got when it's energizing, your boundaries are up. When you're tired, your boundaries are not up, and you're blurring the lines. And if you feel really tired or not good after a balance, you need a balance. You need to sort that. And that's when you go to one of your colleagues and stuff like this. I see a lot of messages in the chat, but I'm not seeing the chat. I'll bet everyone totally get it. A lot of you saying you're energized. That's because you're very good professionals and you've been able to establish the balance. I can see someone said they've experienced both. And if you do feel bad, just know that's yours. You got to do something about it. Do something. Go to one of your colleagues, I know most of you probably have someone you can exchange with, I hope. Anyway, so archetypes, which is basically the Buddhic plane, I call them behavior patterns. They're often thought patterns, and from there you generate the thoughts and emotions, and they can be conscious, subconscious, unconscious, and then they affect your anatomy and physiology. And sometimes you're conscious about your emotions. You're aware you're emotional and why you're emotional. That's conscious. Subconscious, I'm aware I'm emotional, but I don't know why. And unconscious is, what are you talking about? I'm not emotional. I'm not emotional. I'm perfectly calm. What are you talking about? You don't know you're emotional, and you certainly don't know why. That's unconscious. But anyway, then it manifests into the anatomy and physiology. So you can see this is the whole flow of the way it goes. So each samskara generates behavioral compensations which manifest as archetypes, thought patterns, emotional imbalances, and some examples, I think these ones are from Stephen Walensky. You can certainly search his YouTube, Stephen Walensky, samskaras. You'll find his 40 samskaras on there. I am bad. I have to prove I'm good. So you have to constantly prove how good you are. And there's nothing more, if you ever dealt with someone like that, they're constantly, oh, do you see how good I was? Kind of like, oh, stop being annoying, stop it. And, or I am undeserving is the samskara. Compensation, I have to sacrifice my needs. Manifests as people with a martyr archetype. So, what do you mean I have needs? My needs are your needs, type of thing. So, archetypes are wonderful. They're represented in mythology and they're defined as patterns of behavior. Well, that's how I see it. It's a pattern. And it can be a collective inherited unconscious idea, pattern of thought images, and these patterns of behavior and thought arise from the seed of imperfection that is the samskara. So the samskara, the best analogy I've heard of it is you imagine an ocean. Do you imagine our ocean would be completely still, but it's not like that, is it? So initially when you get a wave, before you get a wave, you get a swell. That's it. That's the samskara. So when the swell begins, then eventually it creates a wave, which is the archetype. Then if you're standing on the shore, all you see is the crashing wave, and that's the thoughts and emotions. Because the thoughts and emotions is what's visible to you in the real world. You see that. You see people thinking, you see their emotional states, but you don't see what's behind it. You don't see the archetype that they're doing, and you certainly don't see the samskara. And, there's certainly an in-depth part of our psychology. So here's some examples of the victim. Bad things always happen to me. So this is a thought or behavior pattern. So bad things always happen to them because that's their thought or behavior and they expect that to happen. And my teacher used to say that the main secret of manifestation is expect it to happen. So if you expect bad things to happen to you, you'll manifest it. If you expect good things to happen to you, that you'll manifest that too. You know, the creator, I need to have an audience for my ideas. Oh, I've probably done that before. The martyr, your needs are important, mine are not. The fool, I'm never taken seriously. The magician, I manifest what I want. The tyrant, everyone must do as I say. The warrior, I need to battle to succeed. Oh, that's a good one. You know, it's like, how many people, have you ever heard someone say, like, if I haven't struggled, I don't feel like it's worth anything. I think, oh my God, it's a terrible, like, belief system. And the innocent, I believe everyone. That's the really naive state, you know, really, really naive state. Anyway. So if I get back to the whole idea of chakras are the organs of the energetic anatomy, you know, and this is kind of what I came up with. I think it was in around 15, and I went to the Sydney conference of the AKA, and I was in a little side room, and I presented this for the first time, this whole idea that I'm about to show you now. It was kind of a bit out there, and eventually I even wrote a balance for it. But anyway, some of you are going to do chakra 4 with me soon, so then you'll get the balance. But anyway. So different physical organs have different functions and produce different molecules. So, you know, so yeah, they produce hormones and enzymes, like the pancreas produces blood sugar hormones and digestive enzymes, the thymus. You have hormones to produce mature T cells. The thyroid is involved with calcium homeostasis and T3, etc., etc. So chakras work with different energies such as prana. So each chakra has a different quality of energy. So when you understand the quality of every chakra, and certainly here I'm just going to talk about the 7 major chakras, but of course I deal with the minor chakras and the celestial chakras as well. And I all, you know, the thing about a chakra is you understand it works with energy, we exchange energy, we transduce energy, but each chakra has a very specific energy. When you understand that, and say if you work with someone with base chakra issues, you can see there it says security and identity. People, you know, they have issues around who they are. And that can even be your career. You know, it's the I am, the ego, who you are in the physical world, you know, in the family, your partners, your children, your parents, at work, your relationship with all your work people. The sacral chakra is pleasure and sexuality. You know, have a good time and everything like that. Get laid. Solar plexus chakra, power and respect. Heart chakra, unconditional love and acceptance. And the throat chakra is about communication. They're just some examples. And at the end, I'm going to go through all the 7 chakras. I've left the last couple of slides with spaces. That's where you can write stuff in. And if you haven't got it printed out, don't worry, it'll be on our YouTube channel. So you'll be able to go there and later on write it in and pause it and write things down and things like this. So we will make it available to you. So what I understood is that if if you look at the physical body, that the organs produce different substances like hormones, enzymes, proteins, you know, there's minerals, there's carbohydrates, there's fat and all this kind of thing. Then our chakras must have these kind of, you know, molecules as well, because, you know, this is the model of of each plane has 7 atoms, which relates to 7 subplanes. So I started thinking, well, hang on a second, do you mean, so the astral body has, or the astral dimension has atoms? That means these atoms must make molecules, but they're not physical atoms, they're pranic atoms, and they would make pranic molecules. So I coined the term pranicules. I said, oh my God, that must be what we exchange. When we're exchanging energy with someone, we exchange pranacules. Like, you know, like a hormone's a chemical messenger. So if we have a hormonal pranacule made out of pranacules, it's like, I want to give you a message. Or you want an enzyme, I want to modify something, you know, or even a fat or a mineral or anything like that. And I was like, oh my God, we have pranacules. I actually made up an English word, pranacule. And I presented that 5 years ago at the AKA conference in the little side room on the side. It was kind of fun. And I think people will look at me kind of weird at the time, but, you know, certainly as we've learned to work with it, and certainly Charles showed me some ideas of a friend of his, and they kind of helped me develop the way we can actually implement that into our practice. But that is another story. We're certainly not part of what we're doing here. So we've got the chakras, and certainly this is the theosophical model. They put the spleen chakra in instead of the sacral chakra, because the sacral chakra is about sexuality, and they existed in the Victorian times. And, you know, who would want to enjoy sex at those times? They even said to activate this chakra would be a great misfortune. Anyway. But so they gave us all this information about the spleen chakra, which is all about prana and bringing prana in and distributing prana. So certainly the connection and interaction of prana is very important. And understanding that helps us understand that, you know, if chakras are indeed places where we exchange energy, then, you know, we can explain it through what we actually exchange is called pranacules. So anyway. So like blood, prana must contain different types of pranic molecules or pranacules, and you would have equivalent of, you would have an equivalent of physical molecules, so hormones, which we say the chemical messengers. So we'd have hormonal pranacules, which are pranic messages. It's like, you know, when you want to energetically give someone a message, you know, it could be through the throat chakra, I want to communicate with you. The heart chakra, you know, I want to unconditionally love you or have acceptance with you. Or the sacral chakra, I want to have sex with you. Do you know what I mean? It's just a way you exchange energy with people. So anyway, let's look at chakras and understand the imbalances. So, okay, cool. Anyway, so that's what chakras look like. They call them, this is the 4-petal lotus, because it actually looks like a lotus if you've seen them in a, I remember when I was in Bali last year, and you can see them in the water. And it's exactly what a lotus looks like when it's not blooming without the flower. Look exactly like that, and that is why the Indians call them the 4-petal lotus, the 6-petal lotus, the 10-petal lotus, because they look like a lotus, like that. I saw one once. I was in Salt Lake City at a conference, and some guy was drumming, and I could see the back of his heart chakra. I was like, I sat there with my jaw open. It was like, wow. Anyway, so let's understand chakra imbalances. So people have trained with me before might have heard this, and it's certainly something I've been pounding the pavements with for many years. But, you know, it's important to understand it, you know. So chakra, so we looked before, chakras have a front and back. They have a yin and a yang aspect, and they have an under and over energy. When I first developed my chakra hologram formatting system, I could even tell you which plane it was on and that, but I had no idea what it meant. I just had this formatting system. Then I met Kerry McFarlane, and she had what everything meant, but she had no formatting system. So we combined for chakra hologram 1 and 2, and we developed this thing. And then later we worked together for a few years, and then we went our ways, and then I developed my own understanding. So what I'm going to share with you is my own understanding with how it works. Okay. So the front back. So, you know, so we can see the chakras have a front back, and Kerry used to say that, you know, the back is things that happen beyond your control and the front is how you respond. The way I understood it is how you respond. It's basically what's going on within you. So if you look at the front back is the internal world, external world. So, you know, like the back could be the situation you're in, like, and especially those people I know in Europe, they like to work with the family constellations. So if you the constellations certainly would be the back of the chakra, and the front is your inner world. What are your internal, emotional or thought patterns going on within you? Where the external world would be the situation you're in. So it could be the actual situation, stresses in the workplace, in the family, in your relationship, with your parents, with your children, whatever it is. You know, it's the situation you are in. So straight away, if you know that the imbalance is on the front or the back, that's what you talk about with your client. So the yin aspect. So what does that mean? Remember how I said there are places where we exchange energy? So the yin is about how you receive energy. So if you take the throat chakra, for example, if someone communicates with you, do you hear what they say? Or you don't listen? Or do you overanalyze it and go, oh, when you say that, when you don't really mean that, what you mean is that. Or the yang aspect is when you give energy. So throat chakra, again, communication. Can I say what it is I want to say? Or do I just come out with all this verbal diarrhea? Or am I lost for words? You know, right now, if I was yang under energy, I wouldn't be able to express what it is I want to say. But when I'm yang balanced, I can express to you exactly what I want to say in a very clear method. Okay. So that's important to understand if the imbalance is yin or yang, because giving and receiving, we all know, are completely different. And expressing yourself and listening are completely different behaviors. If someone doesn't listen in certain situation, that's a behavior. So I would call that yin under energy in the throat chakra, someone who doesn't listen. So, you know, that might happen in a relationship after a certain point. Someone stops listening to their partner, yin under energy, go get a balance, sort it, you know, because you're not going to have fun in your relationship like that. So understanding, so we have what I call the 6 states of a chakra. So the first 2 are the balance. So that is yin and yang balanced. So we don't use every chakra all the time. And that's an important thing to understand. I mean, you don't communicate all the time, right? Well, the throat chakra is verbal communication. So we're not doing verbal communication. We're doing, you know, all the time. So you don't use it all the time. So the thing is about the yin and yang balanced state is you've got to, yin balance is you receive the energy in its correct amount when it's appropriate. So in the throat chakra, when someone communicates with me, I hear you. I understand what you're saying and I can respond if necessary. Or not necessarily respond, you might just go, oh yeah. The yang balance has been able to give the energy in its correct amount when appropriate. And so this is, you know, so if you take, for example, the throat chakra, it's about I can communicate what I need to say when it's appropriate for me to say something. Like right now, it's appropriate for me to talk a lot and you not. Even though I've muted you all and you can't say anything, and it's because there's so many of you online, it's just not appropriate for you to talk while I'm talking and while I'm teaching. And so that would be an imbalance. But, you know, in the break, if you're in a course and you go, everyone goes out and has a coffee and you have your snacks and you go natter, then it's appropriate. So it's about using it at the time when it's appropriate. That is the balanced state of a chakra, and we don't always use it. Use it when it's appropriate. That's important. Under energy is blocked energy flow. And so yin under energy is you don't receive the energy. So yin under energy, throat chakra, is I don't hear you. Someone says something to you and you just don't hear them. I used to do it as a lot when I was a kid. My mum would come say, here you go, blah, blah, blah. And I just wouldn't hear it. And she'd be standing right next to me speaking to me. I just honestly wouldn't hear her. I go, oh, after a minute, I go, what, were you saying something? And she'd be so frustrated with me. And I'd be go completely in under energy, and I'd be probably yang over in the brow chakra because I'm so focused on some information, or like I'm watching TV or reading something, and I'm just so focused on that I don't hear. You know, it's a kind of a pattern. And yang under energy is you can't give the energy. Like yang under energy in the throat chakra is that I can't communicate what it is I want to say when it's appropriate for me to say it. Okay. Then you have over energy. So over energy is the when there's too much energy flow, and so you have yin over energy. I call it the vacuum cleaner. You know, because it doesn't matter how much you get, it's not enough. It's like that song, I Can't Get Enough of Your Love. It was yin over energy, sacral chakra. You know, give it to me, baby, give me more, can't get enough. You know, people often who are hypersexual can have that, not necessarily, but you know. So it's really obsessive. It gets, if anyone's got any kind of obsessive behavior, look at the chakra that's involved with that kind of behavior, and there'll be yin over energy in that chakra straight away. You can identify it straight away. And I used to have a friend of mine used to be obsessed with me. They just, whatever I did, I just didn't show them enough respect. And I said, you know, you're just obsessed with me respecting you. You're yin over energy in the solar plexus chakra, which doesn't really go down well when, you know, and she certainly wasn't happy with me for saying that, but anyway, but that was the fact. And but it's just the way it is. Any kind of obsession, you have that. Okay. Yang over energy is giving too much, and this is when you dump. You know, people who just don't stop talking. You know, you get that people, and then blah 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 blah. You know, this is like, and your head hurts, your head spins. Yeah, they're yang over energy in the throat chakra. You know, so it just depends on, you've got to understand the energies, and so we'll certainly look at that in a minute, and I'll go through it. I'll go through each chakra, each state. I've put them down and how you can identify it, because, you know, I wanted to make this something that's more than just normally I would do at a conference. I wanted to make it like more professional development, where you can take away something and use it straight away with your clients. That's the idea. So we've got the 6 states of a chakra. So you've got the yin balance, under energy, over energy, yang balanced, under energy, over energy, and you can apply them to the front and the back. So it means internal world, external world. Now, if it's on the front, it's like, oh, it's the thoughts, my thoughts and emotions, everything else going within me. Or if it's the external world, it's like what's going on outside of you, if you know what I mean. And then we have the interaction. So here we have, they're twins. Sorry. It's the interaction of a chakra. It's kind of a way I wanted to introduce it. And so it's the throat chakra. So it's about communication, and they're communicating to each other, and it's the front. So it's also, maybe they're communicating about how they feel in the situation. And and that's verbal communication. Just a tip, non-verbal communications, the eye chakras, which is a minor chakra. But so you won't get them here in the major chakras, which is, I'm just going to deal with that here, like in this state. You know. they're the planes or the dimensions, I like to call them, and the, you know, like you've got like the transduction. So when you go this way, your emotions generate thoughts, generate archetypes, and go up. And where down here, where you've got the higher spiritual planes, you come down through the samskaras, generate the archetypes, generate your thoughts, generate your emotions, and then affect your physical body. So how are we going to do this, and how are we going to understand it as a form of kinesiology? So this is chakra mode. I mean, I don't even know where this mode come from. It's used in many different systems of kinesiology. So, well, some people call it mudra. So you've got this nice picture of my ex-wife's hand. But anyway, and that's certainly, so if we hold chakra mode, and then what we're going to do is use the alarm points. And most of you should know the alarm points, which I think in China they call them new points or something like this. And so these the point chakra relationship originally came from Richard Utt in his workshop, The 7 Chi Keys, and then he had this whole acupressure system. When I developed chakra hologram, I just graduated from Kinesiology College in Melbourne. And I'd done, you know, Charles Krebs was one of the teachers, and he taught us applied physiology. So I did a lot of the applied physiology training. And this was in the mid-90s. I think it was 96, 97 that I was training there. And when I just graduated, I had, you know, I was working with a client, and my hands just went chakra hologram, and it showed me, oh my God, what's that? And then I realized these indicator points were from Richard, you know, like, but you know, like I would say, oh yeah, they're, you know, because there was 14 alarm points and 7 chakras. So you've got each pair, yin yang pair, relate to the chakra. And so what I realized was that's the yin and yang aspect. But I had no idea what that meant at the time. I went, oh, it's a yin aspect, it's a yang aspect. And then we would do the planes, and then I think later on it was subplanes. Then we could tell if it's the front or the back. And so we just do this system, and you could tell everything. Later on, we introduced the notion of light touch and deep touch, which again, Richard used to use it. It may come from further back in kinesiology, where if you hold a point deep touch, it's under energy, or light touch, it's over energy. If you haven't seen that before, it's certainly something, you know, back in those early days when Richard was still alive, I did a few things with him. I did a workshop with him in Germany. And I went to 2 conferences in Tucson in 99 and 2000 where I was presenting, and certainly got to meet some of the people who made it possible for me to continue to develop kinesiology around the world. And what happened was I was, you know, I would watch him do it, you know, because what he wrote in his manuals and actually what he did when you did a course with him were completely different things. It was nowhere near the same. So the base chakra was the alarm points were heart and small intestine. So heart is yin and small intestine is yang. And so if you go deep touch, light touch, you can tell straight away. So if you go chakra mode plus heart, deep touch, it's a base chakra, yin under energy. And if you do it light touch, it's yin over energy. And if you want to have a further description, there's a manual I wrote you can buy on Equilibrium. There's Chakra Metaphors, which has all this, and certainly in Chakra Hologram 1 we have it as well. So the yin, the base chakra is about security and identity. It's about I feel safe and I know who I am. So yin is, so when people are yin under energy in the base chakra, they don't feel safe when they should. So these are people who are very insecure. They think the world's always out there to get them. Or it's about, with the identity, it's about understanding where other people are coming from. Because, you know, like I am me, I'm Hugo, I'm a kinesiologist, you know, I've got Australian mother, Ecuadorian father. I've got 2 children. One's come home for the lockdown, of course. You expect that. But anyway, that's me. But then I have to understand where you're coming from. So yin under energy, you just don't get where other people are coming from. Yin over is obsessive. It's like, oh, I need you to feel safe. You know, if you don't do this, I won't feel safe. So you must be here, or, you know, oh, I've got to walk across the road. You've got to walk across the road with me. I can't do that alone. You've got to help me. Anyone know that kind of behavior? Yin over energy. Or you're obsessed with who people are. You just totally obsess about them. You're like, oh my God, I want to know this and that. You often get that a lot with celebrities. They will get a lot of people that are yin over energy and the base chakra towards them because they want to know everything about them. The yang is about expressing your identity and expressing the security and safety. So, you know, I can express who I am, or like even like another aspect of the base chakra is your career. Have you found your right career path? And you know, you've chosen to be a kinesiologist, for example. Are you actually a kinesiologist? Do you actually make money from it? Because money is earth energy, it's base chakra. Base chakra is the earth, so you receive money. And so you have enough money to live in the world. And so the yang over is that you put it on, you overpower people with who you are, and you put everything, you know, like, you know, there's a bit of a dictator, like, oh, I am this is how you should be. Or I remember when I was 20 and I went to live with my father in Ecuador and he wanted me to be an engineer. I thought, okay, let's study engineering because he's an engineer. And he wanted me to do this, and it's because what he wanted. He wanted me to be molded in the way he wanted me to be, to take over he had a consulting business. And sure, I mean, if I'd done that, I would have probably made lots of money, but it just wasn't my path. You know, so my path is your path. So I had to leave and then come back to Australia and then go and live in India, and then discover kinesiology, and then spend 2 years studying it, not knowing why I'm doing it. Then all of a sudden end up in Tucson, meet some people from Europe, and over 20 years later, I'm still traveling around the world teaching kinesiology, though I'm not traveling far these days. Sort of like I'm grounded. It's the first time in over 20 years I would have spent so much time at home, which is probably good for me anyway. So then the next is the sacral chakra. So the sacral chakra is about, you know, the essence of the sacral chakra is about, to me, is pleasure. It's about having a good time. I mean, people often think about sexuality and sex, and it's absolutely true. I mean, sex should be fun, right? Have you ever had sex when you thought, oh, I better do it because my partner or whatever, you know? But it's also about, you know, it's like, I don't know, go and have a cup of tea with your friends, or, you know, sitting by the pool, having a couple of beers with your mates, having a barbecue or whatever, or whatever it is you do for fun. Go to the beach with some friends, or even by yourself. You know, go for a walk on the beach by yourself because it's what you like to do and you get pleasure from it. Anything you get pleasure from, like true pleasure, is sacral chakra. And just sex is one of the things you should get true pleasure from. So the yin aspect is how you receive it. So yin under energy is that you just feel like there's no fun in the world, like it's a bleak place. Or you know, in a relationship, has anyone ever felt blocked from, they just don't really want to receive the sexual energy from their partner when they should, and they feel guilty about it and everything like that? They can be yin under energy. Yin over is being obsessed with that. You know, I'm obsessed with having sex with you. Just, you know, give me more. And it's just like, you know, it just doesn't matter how much you give me, or even, it mightn't even be with one person, it might be like with many. It's like, yeah, you know, like people go into those phases. Or you just get obsessed with, like, everything should be fun in the world. Oh my God, we've gone to the shops, we should be having fun. I'm not having fun. Oh my God, what the hell's going on here? Aren't we supposed to be having fun now? You know, that's yin over energy. The yang is about expressing it. So, like, obviously sexuality is expressing your sexuality, being able to, like, yang under energy is you just don't have sexual drive. Yang over energy is too much. You know, people who are over hypersexual, and certainly, but it's also about having fun. And like, I saw when I was raising my children, I saw this incident where the kids were all trying to play, and then one of the kids was just crying because he's trying to control the game, that he's trying to control the way everyone had fun. And I thought, oh my God, that kid's yang over energy in the sacral chakra. I thought, oh my God, when he grows up, his poor partners. Oh, poor kids, you know, they've got not me around them as they're growing up. I'm just analysing their chakra imbalances like, oh my God. Anyway, so that would be yang over energy in the sacral chakra, and yang under energy is you can't express it. So yang over in sexual is I'm controlling, you know, very controlling sexually. Solar plexus chakra is about being in your power. So, you know, I can stand in my power, you know, like, but it's kind of interesting. I was at a conference once and I watched one of the very experienced kinesiologists, and it just blew me away. And she said, you know, when I work with my clients, we journey side by side. And that was Robbie Zek, actually. She said that we journey side by side. We're at a conference here on the Gold Coast. And I just thought, wow, that is solar plexus chakra totally in balance. Because, you know, the solar plexus chakra is being in power, but you need to be able to have someone else in power beside you and not feel threatened. So to me, when you talk about the solar plexus chakra, it's about respect. You know, it's like, I respect you, you respect me, because you can be in your power, and that is good for me. I enjoy to see you empowered. You know, I remember I had a client and they were like, you know, they had their husband and she was like this and that. And I worked with her over some time. And at one point I said to her, I said, you know, this relationship of yours, you know, before it, you were just really empowered, and now you're completely disempowered. And that was kind of the thing that she needed to hear. And then all of a sudden, you know, like a couple of months later, she was divorced, you know, because it just wasn't working for her, because there was no empowerment, but there's also respect. But of course, you've got to look at yourself too. Like, do you respect yourself? You know, people who do the doormat, for example, they have solar plexus chakra issues. So yin under energy in the solar plexus chakra is like, oh, I don't feel like anyone respects me. You know, I do the doormat, you know, I've got no self-respect, you know, I don't deserve respect. No, I'm useless. Where yin over energy, you're obsessed with people respect you. Oh, man, you know what I mean? You sneeze, that means you don't respect me. You should show me more respect, and you should, you know, not sneeze like that. Well, I mean, these days it's fair enough, but you know. The yang of the solar plexus chakra is being empowered, expressing your power, but also respecting yourself and respecting others. So people who have a yang under energy, and often this is reflected on yourself. Yang under energy is you've got no self-respect, and you don't know how to respect other people, and you can't stand in your power. And that's so important. I mean, the solar plexus chakra is a 20th, 21st century issue. I mean, you know, people are bombarded with these messages, you know, on how you should look, how you should behave, how you should do it. And now you've got this social media thing going on, and people are these kids growing up all around that, and they've got no, you know, this whole self-respect and self-esteem, and low self-esteem is just incredible. And so this is solar plexus chakra imbalances. Next, we go to the heart chakra. So the heart chakra, you know, is about unconditional love. And, you know, I always say, when you love someone unconditionally, you accept them for who they are, full stop, end of the story. There are no other questions. So the yin under energy is that you don't feel accepted, yes, or you're blocked from being loved. No one loves me, I'm unlovable. So people will be loving you, they'll be accepting you, but you don't feel it. And that's the thing with the yin. When people give you the energy, you don't receive it. It's not an imbalance if people are not giving you the energy and you don't feel like you're receiving it, because you're not receiving it. The imbalance is when people are giving it to you, you don't receive it, or you don't feel like you receive it. So, No matter wherever I go, just people cannot accept me for who I am. So I have to move on again. And they might very well be. Heart chakra yin over is obsessed. It's like, oh yeah, you sneezed. Oh my God, you sneezed. Does that mean you don't love me anymore? Do you know what I mean? It's about yin over energies. You're obsessed about everything's like a symbol or a sign of it. And the heart chakra yang is about loving others. Are you able to love? Are you able to accept? Do you accept yourself or do you hate yourself? It's kind of interesting that the gland associated with the heart chakra is the thymus, which produces the T cells. And one of the major forms of autoimmune disease is when the T killer cells attack your good cells. It's like, and that comes from your thymus. It's like, I'm attacking myself. I hate myself. I attack myself. Autoimmune system, yang over energy, heart chakra, autoimmune, attack myself. You know, kind of interesting when you kind of make the connection between the chakra imbalance and behavior. Throat chakra, as I mentioned before, is about communication. So that has the energy of communication. It's verbal communication. You know, for me, I know people break it down into communication into different aspects, but you know, there's three important points to communication. There's what's been said, how it's been said, and body language. Because, you know, someone can say, hi, how are you? And you say, I'm great. Oh, yeah, I'm great. Oh, yeah, I'm great. You know, each one, you know, like just the way you say it actually changes what you mean. So communication is about expressing what you mean. So we do verbal communication in the throat chakra. And as I mentioned before, non-verbal communications in the eye chakras. So the yin of the throat chakra is about receiving other people's communication. So it's basically listening, and you know, when someone talks to you, do you actually understand what they're actually trying to tell you? You know, you know, I have this, you know, I mean, I guess all of us out there, we've had, you know, maybe one or many or a few relationships. I came to the conclusion, there's a no that means no and the no that means yes. The yes that means yes and the yes that means no. So which one are you being told? It's like trying to decipher it. It's like, oh my God, when someone says no, is that the no that means no or the no that means yes? Do you know what I mean? Because it's just, not only it's what they're saying, it's how they're saying it and even their body language. You know, all that communication's a very complex thing. So if you really want to work with communication, you've got to not only do the throat chakra, you've got to do the eye chakra as well. But here we're just talking about the majors. So the throat chakra yin is how you receive communication. So basically you understand what someone's trying to verbally communicate to you is about the yin of the throat chakra. So when it's balanced, someone communicates something to you and you totally get what they mean. So the throat chakra yin under energy is about you can't hear what they're saying to you. So it's like, you know, they might be trying to tell you something, but you don't get it. Or you can have the throat chakra yin over energy as you overanalyze it. It's like, oh my God, you said, hi, how are you? But I can tell by the tone of your voice, but when you say, hi, how are you, you don't really mean, hi, how are you? What you mean is you hate me. Do you know what I mean? And the other person go, I just said, hi, how are you? And that's all I meant. Do you know what I mean? It's you obsess and overanalyze what people say to you. It's like, and your brain goes around in loops. Then you've got the, so that's the yin, the throat yang. So yang under energy is you can't express what it is you want to say. It's like, you know, it's like, oh, Hugo, can you just add to that? And I'm like, I remember when I first started, I used to be terrified of speaking in groups. And, you know, when I was in Kinesiology college, we had to do a presentation in front of the people I've been training with for almost 2 years. And I stood up there shaking. And I was like, oh my God, this is just awful, you know. And so I couldn't even care. I was terrible. I don't even know how I passed that class. It was a touch for health trainer, you know. They call it the ITW back then, but you know, I was learning to be a touch for health instructor, which I never taught, but I actually had the qualification. Probably don't have it now, but whatever. But I don't even know how I passed it. I was shocking. And I remember when I started writing courses, and I did the first kind of thing with, they were all my friends and colleagues, you know, maybe 10 people. We were down there in Melbourne in Kooyong Road at Peter McClellan's clinic. And I was just started shaking, and I thought, oh, I've got to get over this. I just got to get on with it. And it just left. I've never had it again. I've stood in front of hundreds or even thousands of people, not a problem. But it's amazing, you know, not being able, you know, when you had that state, I was totally yang under energy, and I couldn't express what it was I wanted to say. And yang over is just, whoa, you know, people are just going, whoa, 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 whoa. I was like, oh my God, you know. Meeting someone who's yang over energy in the throat chakra, to me, it stresses me out a lot. You know, I don't know other people out there who get stressed by that, but I certainly do. Then we move along to the brow chakra. So the brow chakra is really interesting. So it's about, they call it wisdom or knowledge. It's certainly about the way I understood it. You know, there's different types of knowledge. And when I did Buddhist meditation when I was living in India, and the teacher used to do, he said, you know, you've got 3 levels of knowledge. The first level was devotional knowledge. I believe something because I have faith in the person who told it to me. Then you have intellectual knowledge. I believe something's true because I understand it. And then you have the 3rd level, which is experiential knowledge, which I believe something is true because it's been my experience. I understand that through experience. And so the brow chakra is certainly through this experience of being able to you know, knowledge and through experience, learning through experience. So the brow chakra is often the teacher-student relationship. When I think of the brow chakra, I think of the teacher and the student. You know, the yang is, I want to explain something to you. I've got something to share with you. And the yin is, oh, you've had this experience. I want to learn from you. So I can tell you things now, you might want to learn something from me there, but tomorrow you might teach me something. We're always teaching and learning. You know, the moment you stop learning, I think is, you know, and especially as kinesiologists, and, you know, I've worked with different kinesiology groups around the world. And what struck me is, you know, especially in a place like Germany, some of the people I work with there, you know, they've done over 10,000 hours of kinesiology training. It's like, oh my God. I mean, it's hard to imagine someone's done so much training and they've got so much knowledge, but they're there still learning. You go, oh, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? And it's just part of their passion. Some people are just passionate about it. And what I realized, the truly exceptional practitioners never stop learning, and especially kinesiology, because it's so new and it's changing all the time and it's like moving. And some people, they just go, oh, I'm going to do this. And then they stay there. And they're good, they're functional and they work. There's nothing wrong with that. But, you know, what I've observed over 20 years working with people around the world, the truly exceptional ones are the ones that never stop. They keep going, they keep going. It's just part of their, you know, they think, oh, well, every year I'm going to do X number of courses and I'm going to travel here, and then they just have a break and they meet their colleagues, and there are other colleagues who are just as exceptional as them, and they get to exchange balances and interact, and for them it's an important part of their life. You know? So the brow chakra, yin under energy, it's like you don't, you know, like the thing is about learning from experience, is about learning from your mistakes. So yin under energy is about, you know, have you ever made the same mistake twice? if you have, it's been a yin under energy experience. I remember at one point, because I've got this RTO here in Australia, and I went and did all this management training, and one of the trainers was saying, it's Australian Institute of Management, they're saying, oh yeah, he knew someone who said, make a mistake once, it's forgivable, they understand it. Make the same mistake twice, you're fired. They'll let people make one mistake once, but if you can't learn from it, then you've got no place in this organisation. So out the door they were. And I was like, holy hell, that guy must have been, tough. But basically, the person had a yin under energy in the brown chakra. If they had a kinesiologist that could sort that, people would never do it, because they would make a mistake, they would learn from it. But it's just an imbalanced state. And yin over energy is like, oh my God, everything's a lesson. Oh my God, I saw an eagle flying in the sky. It means I have to go here and learn this and do that. Oh, I'm going to be a kinesiologist. No, I saw a cat on the road. Now I'm going to go and do Reiki or something like this, or do something else. I'm going to do this. Everything's a sign to do something. But again, it's because obsessive. It's yin over energy. It's not really that. The yang is about how you express it, how you teach, so it's the teaching part. So brow chakra, yang under energy is that you can't model the behavior for learning, or you can't lead by example, learning through other people's experiences. And there certainly is a leadership role around this. And yang over energy is, I'm going to tell you how you're going to learn. This is what happened to me. This is what's going to happen to you. It was good for me, so it's good for you, this kind of thing. Where the yang under energy is like, you can't engage with the experience that you're having. You have this experience and you can't, engage with it. In that whole lesson that plays out. The crown chakra, on the other hand, is the spiritual connection. It's, here at the top of the head and goes up into the higher realms. And so it's really about that spiritual connection. So the yin is about the receiving, the divine. So yin under energy is like, my stepfather used to say this. Said, I don't believe in anything. You're just going to die and you're going to be dust. That's it. It's so you can't receive the divine, or you're blocked from receiving. It can even be divine inspiration, because the crown chakra is not only spiritual, but it's about the connection and understanding. And certainly I know the reason I've been so successful over the 20 years and written over 100 kinesiology courses is because when the inspiration comes to me, I trust it. And I know the people who are yin under energy, they don't trust their own personal inspiration. And that is one of the biggest blockages to you being a successful practitioner, because what I've noticed is people who their path is to be a practitioner, they'll be just there with their clients, and some of you might know this. You'll be there with your clients and something will just come to mind, you just say something and it's just so perfect. You think, oh my God, where'd that come from? It's like you're almost channeling it. Anyone had that experience? And that's when you're doing the right thing. And my thing is to develop kinesiology courses. Like, oh yeah, okay. That's because there's so much to do. You can only do one thing. You can't do everything. So yin under energy is you're blocked from receiving. You're blocked from receiving the divine inspiration. Yin over energy is you're obsessed with it. I remember when I was living in India in the ashram, everyone was the biggest collection of yin over energy crown chakras I've ever seen in my life. Everyone's like, Swami, look at me. Like, well, they're obsessed with religion, or they're obsessed with their guru or their teacher or their whatever their spiritual path is, but it's obsessive with that. The yang is about expressing it into your life. I mean, do you walk? The yin is like what is my spiritual path? Like my teacher used to say, dig one deep hole, not many shallow holes. In other words, what he was saying, you know, find your path and follow your path. Don't do a bit of this, bit of that. You know, especially when I lived in India, there's a lot of people, bit of this, bit of that. Oh, today I'm a Buddhist, tomorrow I'm a Vaishnava, Hindu, and then the next day I'm a Christian, and blah, blah, blah. Always something different the next day, different path. But it was not like, you know, he used to say, paths are many, goal is one. Paths are many, goal to find your path, but the yang is walk your path. How many people actually walk their path and express it into your life? It's kind of interesting, you know, in India, the word, you know, like when I lived there and I used to read things, I got to understand the word yoga means union with God. And most people think of yoga as like the hatha yoga or whatever, different exercise types. But, you know, like in the Bhagavad Gita, for example, they talk about, you know, bhakti yoga, karma yoga, and jnana yoga. So bhakti yoga is union with God through devotion, like the Hare Krishnas. They're always singing. Anything, people are always chanting and singing. Christians, they're always singing hymns and, you know, whatever. Karma yoga is through action. Yeah, in the ashram to be, oh, go and do your karma yoga. Go and clean the toilets. It's like, oh, I'm not doing karma yoga today. And then jnana yoga is through wisdom, you know, often people who are contemplating, meditating and things like that. So, you know, I thought, oh, I'd do that. But no, my path is karma yoga because I'm doing through action. My path is to train people to help other people through kinesiology. And when I realized I was doing karma yoga, I thought, well, that was unexpected, but I accepted it and I just followed my path because that's my path. And if I'm successful or not, doesn't matter. So anyway, so that's that. So that's the what I wanted to share with you tonight with the psychology of the chakra system. And so you all have your PowerPoint, which I sent out with invitations, and you all have your I hope you can use it. I've shown there like how to do you know, just with the alarm chakra mode, then the alarm points, light touch and deep touch. I left you spaces so you could write down, and you know, I especially want you to give you a feeling for it, but when you write it down yourself, you might have your own experience. And so what's important is that you understand your experiences that you had with them. And because when you work as a practitioner with your clients, you've got to work with them and help them understand. I always say my job is to empower the practitioners, which are you guys, to be good at what you do. Your job is to empower your clients. So I hope what you can do is you can use this to empower your clients. And if you want to, we will be posting it. And I can see I'm getting lots of nice comments in the chat. Some of them I know, and some of you I don't know. Oh, crown chakra yang over. I never said that. Thank you. Someone's, oh, that's important. Crown chakra yang over energy. Yeah. If you meet someone that's crown chakra yang over energy, these are one of the most dangerous imbalances there are. These are usually the cult leaders that take people on the path of destruction, because the yang is about the expression of the divine. I mean, I always say when it's in balance, your life is an expression of your higher self or of your divine purpose, or whatever way you want to say it. Yang over energy in the crown chakra is the cult leader. That means they're the false prophets, because it's like they say they're the spiritual teacher. It's like those ones, like the ones in like Jonestown or whatever, and everyone died, poisoned everyone. You know, or we're going to ascend to the whatever dimension. So it's a dangerous one. Usually what it means is someone gets it. I mean, because I know I had it for a while when I was in the astro, so it's usually the preacher. You know, oh, you know, this is the right way that you should, you know, that, you know, all religions are the same. Everything is one. Advaita Vedanta, whatever. You know, so it's a bit of a spouter or a preacher. So that's normally the way you would look at yang over energy at the crown chakra. Someone's like preaching to the other person on how they should be in their spiritual path. So that's it. So thank you everyone for coming on, and we've got the next one. I'm not sure everyone can, if you have any questions, message Carrie.